Today in this video, we're going to go over the learning goals as well as the playbook entry. Today, you're going to use proportions with ratios and rates to make predictions and comparisons. This is just a little bit about how we're actually going to get that taken care of. You've already started the Nearpod lesson. We're going to do the playbook entry now, and we're going to finish with a little bit of mixed review. Here's what your playbook entry should look like. I need you to take a moment to make sure that this is actually what you have on your desk. If you do not have this on your desk, you need to stop, raise your hand, and wait for me to come over with a copy. Once you have realized that you have actually gotten all of the material, we're going to take all 4 of these sections and you're going to cut them out. So pause the video and take a moment to cut them out. Now that you're ready to paste them in, you're going to open your composition notebook to the next clean page. You're going to glue these 3 sections in. You're going to leave a section at the bottom. It's going to be a little bit of blank space. Make sure that when you are putting the proportional reasoning down, you cut along step 1 and step 2 and just fold it back along the dotted line. You do not need to cut underneath the problem up at the top. When it comes to cross multiplication, you are going to cut along underneath the problem at the top, but you're going to leave step 1 through step 4 connected. So don't cut step 1 through step 4. When you're done, your 4th section will be glued in the 2nd page. So you're going to move to the next clean page and you're going to glue it right in the middle of your page. The title is still the same, Solving Ratios. Please make sure that you cut along the black solid line so that you can lift the flaps up when we actually start filling in the information. So pause and take a moment to go ahead and get that taken care of. Now we're ready to go ahead and actually fill out the solving ratios information. Here we have the solving ratios. We also call solving ratios proportions. Proportions are just when you set 2 ratios equal to each other. So solving ratios or proportions is when you get equivalent ratios that can be found by using proportional reasoning and cross multiplication. Proportional reasoning you have already used. Cross multiplication is a new skill, and it is a skill that will carry on through 7th on up. So now let's go through and actually look at what proportional reasoning and cross multiplication looks like. Here we're going to start with proportional reasoning. You're going to lift up step 1 and you're going to put down that proportional reasoning. When you find proportional reasoning, it means step 1 to find the scale factor. And the way you actually set that up is you take your first ratio, you equal it to your second ratio. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out how did your 1 go to the other. So how did 5 go to 20? Well, we know that that's times 4. So if I keep my proportion correct, whatever I do at the bottom, I have to do at the top, which means I'm going to multiply by 4. So my scale factor is times 4. All of this is written underneath step 1 flap. Step 2 is to actually multiply the scale factor. By the known value. So what this basically means is that we are going to take your 4/5 and we are going to multiply them by the 4, top and bottom, and we are going to get our new value, 16/20. So go ahead and make sure that you have these two steps written down. You can either write them down underneath step 1, or you can write them on the actual back of the flap as well as the paper copy. Next, we have the cross multiplication. Cross multiplication is a little bit more involved. What I would like you to do is what I write as far as the definition should go directly on the back of step 1 through step 4, so actually the paper. And any of the examples we go through will need to be written on the actual composition notebook. So to start with, the step 1 is to set up the cross multiplication problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the definition actually on step 1 flap. You need to write it down on the back of it. So step 1 is to set up the cross multiplication problem. And what that just means is you're going to write the problem like that. Step 2 is to multiply the values diagonal from each other. So what that means is when you take 4 over 5 and you have it over n over 20, you're going to take 4 times 20. So you'll do 4 times 20, which would give me 80. And then we're going to, step 3 is to divide the third value into the product it's actually dividing the third value into the cross product. So into the cross product. So what that means is that you're going to take your 80 and you're going to divide it by that third value, which is the 5. And step 4 is just to solve the problem. So that just means that we're going to take our 80 and divide it by 5. So 5 can go into 8 one time. That leaves us with 30. 5 can go into 30 6 times. So n equals 16. So there are 2 ways that we can figure that out. We can either use proportional reasoning or cross multiplication. I will tell you that cross multiplication works wonderful when your numbers are not proportional and they do not go in nicely. This one, where you have 5 into 20, will go nicely. So proportional reasoning will work with this. Cross multiplication works best with numbers that don't go nicely into each other. However, you can use cross multiplication for any time you set this up. So anytime you have one fraction or ratio or rate equal to something else and you're trying to find a missing value, you can always use cross multiplication to divide in order to figure out the correct value. Now we're going to go in and we're going to just practice some of the information. So I'd like you to take a few minutes to set them up. Now, when you set them up, some of them can be used proportional reasoning. Some of them need to have that cross multiplication and dividing. So take a few minutes to get those taken care of. And then unpause the video so that you can check your answers. All right, so let's start with the top one. 2/3 equals n over 24. I know that if I look at my numbers and see if I can use proportional reasoning to make it a little bit easier. Well, I know that 3 can go into 24 times 8. So if I do it on the top times 8, I will get my new answer, and that would be n equals 16. So proportional reasoning works for that top one. So now lifting the flap of this one, I'm going to write 5 over 9 equals n over 45. I know that my 9 can go to 45 by times 5, so I can use proportional reasoning. So I'm going to multiply by 5 at the top, so n equals 25. And so that will go underneath this flap right here. Next, I'm going to look at this one. You're going to lift the flap of this one, and we're going to see if we can't fit the information down. Now, remember, you have a whole page. You're more than welcome to work anywhere around this page as long as you know where your examples are going from or coming from. So here, I'm going to look to see if 5 can go into 12. Knowing my numbers, I can't think of 5 going into 12 nicely, so I'm actually going to use my cross multiplication. So I'm going to cross multiply 15 and 12. When I multiply 15 times 12, I do get 180. So now I'm going to take my 180 and I'm going to divide by my third value. I know that 5 can go into 18 3 whole times for 15. I know that leaves me with 30. And so 5 can go into 36 times. And so n would equal 36. Now I'm going to look at this flap here. So I'm going to lift this flap up. I'm going to do 3 over n equals 6 over 8. I notice that I have proportional reasoning because 3 can go into 6 nicely by times 2. So I'm going to do times 2 on the bottom, but I have to find a number times 2 that will get me 8. If I go backwards, I would be looking for a number divided by 2. So 8 divided by 2 would be 4 because 4 times 2 would be 8. So n would equal 4. Next, I would look at my next flap here. If I went from 16 to 36, it doesn't go in nicely. So what I have to do is I have to do my cross multiplication. So I'm going to cross multiply 16 times 9. And then whatever answer I get, I'm going to divide by my third value. So here I would have 16 times 9, which would give me 144. I take my cross product and I divide it by my third value left, which is 36. So I take 36 and divide it into 144. And I end up with 4. So 36 goes into 144 4 times. So my answer is n equals 4. Now I'm going to look at my last one. I have 1 over 6 equals n over 18. If I look at my proportional reasoning, I can find that 6 times 3 can give me 18. So 1 times 3 will give me my answer of 3 using proportional reasoning. So now what you're going to do is you're going to finish the video, go on to the next slide of your Nearpod lesson so that you can do your independent work.